Greetings, programs, and welcome to something a little bit different, where today, instead of doing a review as much, I figured I'd actually just do a comparison between the two sort of main versions of Springer that are going around. So, as you can see, we have the Thrilling 30 Generations Voyager here on the left. And then we have the Siege Voyager on the right. Now, I'm not going to be going over their transformations because there is a lot to go through in transforming either of these guys. So we are just going to pop around their modes. But we're going to start off here in their car modes. And really quick, let's just get the gun out of the way here so you can get a better view of what Siege Springer is like. As you can see, pretty weird design, but at the same time accurate to, the G1. The G1 Springer was a bit of a weird design, but this is a really good job of bringing that original design up and actually putting it in plastic. I do wish I had a G1 to compare to right now, but I don't. I can't afford most G1 figures. But I've got this guy. He's really cool. Wheels spin really great. He does have visible head syndrome, but whatever. It's a car. Who displays their cars on the back like that? So he's got quite a bit of the, the siege battle damage going on. Probably more than most figures have, to be honest, but again, it doesn't bug me. I don't mind it. And you can see here for the weapon storage, you basically just take his 2 swords, his 2 guns, and this piece, and you can just, mash them all into one thing. I like to put this here, so that I'm using the peg as the pivot point for the, kind of the gun turret here. But you can plug this in like that, then plug it in. It keeps it up a little more and makes it spin freely. I prefer it don't spin freely. And if you want, you can obviously just take everything apart. That was in there. And, you can plug the guns up here, down here. Even put them, facing backwards by the wheel if you want, whatever. All kinds of places to plug the guns. You can take the swords. The tail fins are in the way of them pointing backwards, but you can, plug them on the sides there, facing forward. Quite a few options on this guy for your weapon storage. Because, he is a siege figure, so of course he's all about the million siege ports everywhere. So, get the weapons out of the way. Now let's move on to the Generations Springer, who you can see takes on a much more kind of dune buggy design. This mold was actually very heavily retooled and redone to also be Generations Sandstorm. I'm going to look at Sandstorm in his own video. Usually when I have mold mates, I like to keep them in the same video. But these guys are actually different enough that it's worth counting them as fully separate figures. But anyway, as you can see, he's got his double blaster cannon, on top. Which this is one of the cooler friction missile designs I've seen, because it actually fires off the missiles separately. Which, really nice design, actually kind of different. Go ahead and pop this out. Now, the one thing I will say, this guy's modes do not hold together as well as they do on this one. So, if we're just doing raw comparison, that is definitely a point to the Siege figure. This guy is solid and stays in his modes fantastically. This guy, he's not the worst, but he definitely has some parts that don't like to stay pegged in and, you know, hooked in or whatever. So, let's get the missiles out of the way. And just to know, he does actually store the sword down here on the underside, which is a nice little touch. And more of him is popping apart. Now, to be fair, part of his holding together issues might just be user error. I never rule out the idea that I might just be doing it wrong. But, you know, overall, quite a bit of a different take on him. I guess this one's based on the IDW design in Last Stand of the Wreckers or something like that. I'm still learning the lore, so I'm not going to be 100% on that. But either way, really cool design. And if you want, you know, you can actually kind of flatten these fins out, you know, put them out like that. You know, fold them in, keep them kind of out of the way. So you do actually have a little bit of, you know, more or less posability in this mode. Though this is the official way to have him. So, that's it for the car modes. Let's go ahead and get to the helicopter modes. Alright, and coming into helicopter mode, this time we're actually going to start with the Generation Springer. So, as you can see, both of these guys go through quite a bit of a change to get to their helicopter modes. His sword has gone up here, become his main rotor blade. I can't remember helicopter terms, I'm sorry. But overall, you know, quite a bit has changed. The wheels are almost, you know, completely hidden, you know. You have to look like from the underside or, you know, from directly ahead. You can see the little bit poking out there, but overall, this guy probably has the most dramatic of the transformations for copter mode, but at the same time, he does definitely have the most problems in copter mode. To steal an IMGO-ism, this guy uses a lot of thooping points. You know, basically, you know, nothing's tabbed in. It's just the joint or whatever has a stopping point, you know, kind of a single soft ratchet position. And this guy relies on those for a lot of his, a lot of the copter mode. Like, this whole piece here is basically just, you know, a slight thoop, and you hope it stays there. Which is a little bit of a bummer, but at the same time, copter mode still looks really cool. And you'll notice I don't have the gun on. That's because the gun on this guy is pretty cool, actually. So you'll want to fold up the main nose landing gear. Then take the gun, which, by the way, the handle is actually adjustable. But what you're going to do is there's these little kind of, you know, tabs sticking out on that piece, and you're actually going to line these up, and they will peg into this slot right there, just underneath the landing gear. So it can be a little tricky to get it all to line up, especially while you're trying to keep everything, you know, in shot for the camera. But if you just work it a little bit, here, let's see if I can do better at a different angle here. I need to make, there we go. Okay, so you need the gun handle pointed forward, not back. I had that wrong. But it snaps in right there. So overall, you definitely want to be careful with this mode because it is pretty easy to knock out of transformation, but it looks really, really cool. And moving over to the Siege guy, also a really cool copter mode. It's not as drastic of a transformation, but it is still pretty neat. As you can see, swords come up here, become the thing. He does actually have parts that fold out to hold the guns here, and like for this gun that has the tabs on the side to hold the swords, there's even little cutouts on these fins so you can put on either side. Focus camera. Thank you. So, you've got, there's really good, well done, pre-positioned spots to put the stuff. But as always, it's a Siege figure, so you've still got most of the ports hanging out. So you've still got a lot of other places to put the weapons if you choose. I will give it points for this whole section, what's going on with what will be the robot legs. This is probably the coolest part of the transformation, especially going from car to helicopter. And again, this mode is just rock solid. Everything tabs in, snaps in. The only thing that's like a little loose are these parts, that are holding the guns. But you can just say that's the gun aiming. So either way, like the only thing that's not tight, you can play it off as it's not supposed to be. So again, there's not as much to go over on this guy, frankly, because he holds together really well. He doesn't really have, gimmicks the way that this one does. Nor does he have, like, some weird, obtuse weapon storage. But again, both figures, really cool. I'm not even really able to give a verdict, because depending on what day you ask me, I'll like this guy more, or I'll like this guy more. I'm just showing you the differences. So anyway, let's move on from this, and let's get to the robot modes. And finally, here we are with the robot modes. So, right off the bat, as you can see, Generations, Thrilling 30 Springer, a bit taller, but also definitely a bit more, lanky in proportion. The Siege one, much more, stout and wide. Definitely looks more like he did in the cartoon. Let's start with Siege this time. Go ahead and bring him in close here, see if the camera will actually focus for me here. There we go. Really, really great head sculpt. Painted blue eyes. Unfortunately, my lighting isn't the best to kind of show the details. He does have some pretty dramatic carves, I guess you'd say. So he does come off as being a little dark and shadowy in my lighting, unfortunately. But he's still got a whole bunch of battle damage on him because, of course, he forms this pretty great just weapon backpack. Actually, I definitely have to give the weapon storage points to this version of Springer, is because I love the whole arsenal on his backpack. Yeah, he has a bit of a backpack, from this chunk, but especially when you throw the weapons on it, it looks purposeful, and otherwise it looks like a jetpack. So the backpack doesn't bug me. He poses really, really well. He's just got tons of joints everywhere. And in terms of transformation, I have to say, this guy feels like a third-party figure. Like, if you've seen a lot of those, like, you know, most third-party figures have a lot more engineering to them, a lot more small, just little pieces that move. This guy definitely has that feel to him, so he's a little more complicated to transform in terms of, like, making sure you do, you know, what part in what order and things like that. But he's a fun complicated. He's not, you know, one of those figures that you sit there screaming at after a while because you're just so sick of dealing with them. And, you know, overall, really great figure. Mine has a couple sort of loose joints. I just haven't bothered to, you know, fix them. I'm sure it would take like half the turn of a screwdriver or, you know, a drop of floor polish or something. No big deal, but overall, really, really cool figure. You know, he's got, you know, all the hinges you'd expect, especially from a Siege figure. He's even sort of got double knees if you need, though technically that one is the knee. But yeah, this figure, absolutely awesome. So over here, we've got the Generations mold, who, for some reason, camera does not want to focus on. That or it can't figure out how to focus on it. But, again, great head sculpt. I love the fact this one's actually got light piping. But, again, it definitely has the most trouble holding together because of just, like, soft tabs and stuff on top of the type of plastic it's made out of. So many times while you're adjusting the shoulder, especially if the shoulder ends up, you know, getting tabbed back in, when you go to pull it back out, it just pulls the chest apart instead. You know, nothing, you know, like major and, you know, game breaking or whatever. I'm forgetting how words work. Yay. But it definitely would be nice if he could hold his transformation a little more. Because even figures of this era generally held together better than this. No ankle tilt, as you'd expect. Ankle tilts are, you know, a modern day luxury, but he does have ratcheted knees and ratcheted elbows. Those are the only joints that are ratcheted, but they're there. They're nice to have. All the others are, you know, nice tight swivels. He even has a little bit of in and out on his wrist, which is handy. Great big knee spikes made with the landing gear, which I like. And then I've seen a couple different things you're supposed to do with the fins in the back here. I like to just bring them down like that to give him a little extra heel. Nowhere near as elegant of weapon storage, but I do give points for being able to put the sword on the gun like a giant bayonet. And just because it's worth mentioning, you can put the sword on the underside as well for while he's holding it. Which definitely looks better when it's actually, you know, in his hands. Or obviously just, you know, give him his weapons separate. But again, you know, it's a really cool figure. I wish it had a little bit better engineering. I kind of wish they'd take a newer stab at it. Just update it a little bit. But both figures still, end of the day, really great. Just kind of depends on, you know, what version of Springer do you have more nostalgia for? Are you someone who grew up with the comics? Or did you grow up with the, you know, Generation 1 cartoon? Or are you just a sucker for a triple changer like me, in which case, get both. So, thank you for watching. I know, kind of a weird video, something I've been wanting to do, still figuring out how to go about it. Figured I'd just do one instead of sitting around thinking all day, though. Let me know what you think, what I could do to make this more useful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.